raised in luxury, accused of shooting his father, a wealthy hedge fund manager. Could the 30-year-old son truly have gone after his dad over a squabble about his weekly allowance, or was there something deeper and darker at work in this family dynamic? Here's ABC's Lindsay Davis.
It seemed like such a charmed life. Fancy boarding schools, black tie affairs, summers in the Hamptons. But what is now said to be the reality of Tommy Gilbert Jr.'s life came into sharp focus on Monday when he stood before a night court judge charged with the murder of his 70-year-old father, a wealthy Wall Street player with a multi-million-dollar hedge fund. A murder made to look like a suicide, police say. And news tonight that Tommy is the prime suspect in an arson investigation, the burning down of this million-dollar home in New York's ritzy Hamptons. Police say on Sunday night, Tommy went to his parents' apartment and asked to speak to his father alone. He sends his mother, Shelby Gilbert, out for a sandwich.
She went to get some food for Junior. About 15 minutes after that, she had a bad feeling and decided to return.
But she says it was too late.
She found a senior on the floor with a bullet hole in his head. She also found a gun resting on his chest with his left hand covering it.
According to authorities, Shelby sensed right away that Tommy killed her husband and called 911.
He advises, he says the son shot the father on his head, male white, 6'3", wearing jeans, blue eyes, brown hair, left the location.
Detectives say Tommy left the murder weapon, a .40 caliber Glock 22, at the scene to make it look like his father had killed himself. Tommy did not enter a plea. We reached out to his attorney, who did not wish to comment on the case.
The gun laying where it was didn't seem as a self-inflicted wound that we've had in the past.
One of the many points up for debate, the motive. Perhaps it was money. Investigators tell ABC News the father recently discussed no longer paying his son's $2,400 a month in rent, and was also looking to cut his weekly allowance from $400 a week to $300.
According to police, Gilbert Jr. guns down his 70-year-old father, Thomas Gilbert, because Daddy wanted to cut his allowance. Now, let me remind everybody, the father is already paying for his nearly $3,000 a month apartment.
News of the murder shocked Tommy's glamorous social circle. His ex-girlfriend, Anna Rothschild, said the act was completely out of character.
When was the last time that you spoke? About 2 weeks ago. And he was very personable, seemed even happier than before. He's told me things were going really well. That's why it even comes as more of a shock.
But it didn't surprise some of her friends, who she says found him peculiar.
Friends of mine were actually very scared for me when I was dating him. A mutual friend would say to me on a frequent basis, "We're going to find you chopped up one morning."
Anna says Tommy was introverted and damaged.
How did he describe his relationship with his father?
He described it as strained and stressful for him and disappointing, that he wanted the approval of his father, that he felt that he couldn't do anything good enough to his father's standard.
And Anna says threatening to take away his monthly stipend may have been the last straw.
There was one time that we went somewhere and he tried to pay the bill and his credit card was declined. So I think that was quite embarrassing, and I didn't question him because I didn't feel it was my place to ask somebody what's wrong with their credit card, or where does their money come from, or how much money do you have. It just wasn't my place to say that.
Thomas Sr. was a well-respected founder of the hedge fund Wayne Scott Capital Partners. The company focused on healthcare and biotech investing and had millions of dollars in assets. Jason Dubreuil, based in Chicago, often worked with Thomas Sr.
You know, when you talk with someone on the phone and they get interrupted, sometimes you can see, agitation. He never had that. He was always very even-keeled, long-term, just very much a professional.
And someone who invested in his son's education. Tommy attended $50,000 a year Deerfield Academy in Massachusetts before Princeton University. Robbie Ludwig is a psychotherapist who has not treated Tommy, but has worked with families like the Gilberts.
There was a very difficult dynamic that went on between the two of them, where the adult son felt like he could never please his father. It was contentious. It was filled with rage and shame. And maybe the family made excuses for their son for a very long time, where he was exhibiting problematic behavior that they just assumed was immaturity, or a result of him being spoiled.
The murder allegation was not his first brush with the law. There have been previous arrests, including one for drug possession that's now closed and sealed. Public records also show that back in September, Tommy was arrested in Southampton for allegedly violating an order of protection filed by a former friend. He pled not guilty. 3 days earlier, that friend's family home was engulfed in flames. Investigators believe it was arson. ABC News can confirm tonight that Tommy is the prime suspect.
The defendant has an open contempt in a second-degree case from Long Island. He has a flight risk.
Tommy is currently being held without bail after he was found hiding in his New York City apartment. While there, police say they found 21 blank credit cards and a skimming device.
A skimming device, for those of you that haven't prosecuted felonies, it's a device that you put on an ATM machine, and it skims the information that people put in when they put their card in. And the skimmer can then use their information to get money. This guy with a Princeton degree has a skimming device in his apartment. God help him when he goes in front of a jury.
It's very hard to look at a snapshot of how a person reacts after this kind of crime or alleged crime. So Thomas Jr.'s reaction of blankness could have been several things. Number one, he was in shock and perhaps a bit in denial about what happened. It didn't feel real. Or he truly didn't care, or even worse, felt a sense of relief.
Today, friends and family are mourning the loss of Thomas Sr. and the wasted potential of his son Tommy, who could face up to 25 years behind bars.
We have a shell casing envelope with the serial number of the gun that was recovered at the crime scene. Substantial amount of physical evidence to use.
A hearing is scheduled for February 2nd.
Would you have ever imagined that here he would be arrested, charged with the murder of his father?
Never. Never in a million years would I ever have guessed it. And in fact, even after it happened, and they said it might have been a homicide or a suicide, I said it must have been a suicide. There's just no way this person has this inside of them. To be that angry or violent, I'm still in shock.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Your Honor.